What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions podcast, where I am joined by Lenerd Louw, who's going to talk to us a lot about, correlations that I hadn't really seen or really ever thought of, as something that were as things that were connected. So we're going to talk about sexuality, business, semen retention, and a whole bunch of topics that I enjoy, and I know you guys will. But first and foremost, Lenerd, how are you today, sir?
I'm great, thanks, CJ. It's awesome talking to you, brother.
Dude, I mean, when I saw, like I told you off air, seeing what you were bringing to the table and about talking about semen retention, men's health, and the connection between sexuality and business, I was like, well, this is a very interesting topic, and I can see how they do connect. But obviously, I want to kind of learn more about your background and what brought you to making this discovery and say, hey, I want to write a book and learn more and go deeper into these topics.
Yes, awesome, man. I'm just passionate about men expanding into their full potential, and living a life with passion and pleasure, and connectedness and relationships, and and confidence in themselves and their sexuality. That's a big inspiration, big passion of mine. Um, And my journey has been all over. I was first in business for many years, until like 10 years ago, very much in a business corporate space. And like 10 years ago, I just felt the calling to shift. At that point, believe it or not, I was the CEO of an insurance company in South Africa.
Nice.
And I just felt it was time for something different. And that led to a 5-year journey around the world in 35 countries, and a lot of expansion, workshops all over from India to South America, here in South America. And then in 2019, after 5-6 years of that, wrote this book, Jump, an epic soul and sex adventure. And now I'm just sharing my experiences and my learnings. And there seems to be a golden thread that of sexuality that goes right through my life. Not just the last 10 years, but even from like early 20s, even through my business days. So it's a fascinating thread that exists. And so I'm just sharing my experiences at the moment, and it gives me pleasure.
No, I mean, it's interesting because I find that life is like that, where sometimes you may be just you might just be going down a path, and then all of a sudden you'll kind of look back and be like, you know what, this reminds me a lot of something else, you know, and you start reaching, new levels or new heights, and you're like, wait a minute, this is a lot like progressive overload in the gym. Or in your case, it's kind of like, this, this cycle reminds me of something else. And going back to it, like, when was it where you felt like, you know what, sexual energy and business really has its correlation? Like, was there a moment that really inspired you, or was this just something that you kept seeing, like, from the day-to-day routine where you're like, this reminds me a lot about how, we should actually perceive business or sexuality for that matter?
Yeah, CJ, it's very much the last few years that I really, really seen the deep connection. And it's fascinating, and I've come across things like, maybe I can just put that quickly out. I don't know if you've come across Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. It's one of I think it's the top business book of all time, that was published in 1939. Yeah. And there he talks about sexual energy transmutation. Now, can you imagine in 1939 writing a book, and what that's one of the chapters in the book. And he looked at hundreds of men, and successful in business and artists, and in all areas of life, and see what were the factors. And they came up with 13 factors, success factors. And then the one thing that stood out was he said all of them had a high sexual energy, and could transmute this sexual energy, could transform the sexual energy for anything in their lives. So I just started coming across this, and obviously in the last 5 years I've been a lot involved in tantra and conscious sexuality, and then connecting that with 20 years ago, when I was very much in the space of business. It's now putting those things together, and now I'm really noticing and realizing that, this sexual energy and and success in businesses is so closely related.
Yeah. Do you because now that you bring that up, and I remember reading that chapter in Think and Grow Rich, and I'm just like, sexual transmutation, that's kind of strange. Like, what does he really mean by this? And the more you get to think about it, I kind of found it more that hey, it's that transference of energy that really leads to life, regardless of whether it's human life or pumping life into a business or creating anything for that matter. Did you find that you were using maybe that I guess you were using the concept of sexual transmutation for your when you were CEO at that time? Did you find that, hey, without knowing it, you were applying concepts into your business and looking back in retrospect, you're like, hey, you know what? I think I was already using this concept at that time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I've always had high sexual energy drive, and and I could really manifest in business really well. I was very much enjoyed creating, starting new businesses, um, and now in hindsight, when I look back, I think that energy, that sexual energy, really plays such a strong role. It's creative energy, it's life force energy, and if you can channel that into an endeavor, it's super powerful. And that's kind of also, what this guy said, when I read that. But yeah, I could really look back at that, and I find now when I work with men on this space, yeah, it's such a key factor, that sexual energy, to use that to manifest that. The one example, maybe just to make it practical, that this guy used in the book, he asked the one guy, what was the secret of your success? And it was a billionaire, building all these businesses. And he said, no, my beautiful, sexy secretary. Because in the mornings I would walk into the office and I would walk past her, and I thought, wow, she's so gorgeous, beautiful. And then I'd walk past and go into my office. And then he said, all this energy in his body. But then what he then did with that energy is he went, oh, wow. And he utilized that energy, start thinking about creative ideas and things to businesses to launch. So he could have had an affair with the secretary and spilled the energy out there and have a connection with her. But he decided not to, and he decided to change or use that energy for creative endeavors. So I find that a super practical story. So he was just sitting there, and he was all this energy, and he was probably feeling, just be direct, but horny or randy, and he went like, okay, well, let me just use this energy I have, and then start thinking, and brain activity expanded, and that's how he started a lot of his businesses, which I find a fascinating story.
It is because I mean, I find that a lot of things that we do as men, it kind of comes from the inspiration of, woman. So it's almost like in order for us to find woman, it's almost like, okay, well, what can I do? How can I be creative so I stand out from the pack? And in this day and age, it's almost like, okay, I need success. I need to generate more of an income, which will attract the other sex. Or it's kind of like, I'm motivated by them by just looking and it's like, oh, okay, I got to harness this energy, create something, and this will attract her, like flies to, or bees to honey, right? So I think that makes perfect sense. And it's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like it's a strong motivating factor, I think, as well.
Yes, no, I totally agree, man. No, it's definitely, and you can learn to harness that even more, once you become aware of it.
Yeah, so what would be like some exercises or things that you recommend, I guess, like when you're teaching people and doing your business coaching, how would you tell them like, okay, you really want to harness your energy, you want to get to that next level, try this.
Yeah, what I'm passionate about is for men to, become aware of this energy, and also to become aware of ejaculation. Um, and I don't know, a few of your listeners heard about the practice of semen retention and ejaculation choice and
Yeah.
conscious ejaculation. So that's almost a part and parcel of the same thing for me. So what I find is that when guys, it's not just that they will then do better in business and have more energy to put to other uh, parts in their life, but they will also help. It will also be hugely beneficial for them in lovemaking. It will make them great lovers, because once you realize that and I'm going to jump to the ejaculation part here, CJ. Once you realize as a man that you don't have to always ejaculate when you make love, and that ejaculation and orgasm are two different things. Yeah. It's a game changer. Then it's amazing. The guys go and they say, okay, well, now do you find your ejaculation frequency, instead of, let's say, ejaculating on a daily basis, you can then shift to maybe finding maybe once a week is better for you, and then you then preserve this energy. So I'm very, very much pro ejaculation. I think it's great to ejaculate. I'm not part of there's a thing called no fap on the internet about never ejaculate. So I really don't believe in that. I think it's good to ejaculate. But I think finding the frequency, because I think most men ejaculate too much, and this becomes an addiction, where you ejaculate by, some guys 2, 3, 4 times a day or every day. And, as you get older, it takes your body a long time to recover. You almost have like an ejaculation period, ejaculation hangover period, it takes you a few days. So I find that's super, super powerful. I've had guys, do this 21-day course where guys come on and, for 21 days, we don't ejaculate, we don't watch porn, morning breathing exercises. And I've get guys that, and halfway through that just have massive kind of things happening, beautiful things happening in their lovemaking on the one hand, and then other hand, also business opportunities coming to them. This is pure magic, man.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I heard about semen retention, it was for fighters, and they would actually talk about how they would hold on to their semen before a fight, because in doing so, it actually helped them to be more aggressive, and they fought better, stronger, and that kind of goes back to the old school mentality of warriors before war, where it was don't have sex before war, right? And they actually, I forgot which fighter it was. I think it was one of the Gracies, where he said like they wouldn't have sex for like a week before. And that was the first time I had ever heard of this concept. Fast forward to now, though, right, where instead of us preserving that ejaculate, that sexual energy, semen retention, it's like now I feel like in our society, in our culture, we've been so inundated with porn that it's to our detriment. Because I mean, I'm talking to certain guys where it's like, oh yeah, I jerk off like 4 or 5 times a day. And I'm just like, I mean, first off, it's not good for the brain. Like I've had other doctors talk about how it's awful for the brain, how it's rewiring the neurocircuitry of the brain. And now these people are addicted to their computers, right? They're ejaculating in front of a screen constantly. But I was gonna say, did you find that with some of the men that you work with that this was also an issue? That, these guys are just spending too much time watching porn and just ejaculating constantly, and that's something that you had to like almost change up as far as their habits go?
Yes, for sure. Sorry, it was breaking up a little bit there, but I think I got the gist of the question there, CJ. Yes, definitely. Porn addiction is a big thing, man. Yeah, so that's why in this 21-day journey, where I actually put that in, not to watch porn for 21 days. And, it's not a long time, 21 days, but for some guys, it's a very long time, 21 days, if you're used to watch porn every day,
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. It's and I've listened to one of the other podcasts where you're also talking to a guest about this, and I believe porn is a massive problem, not just for men, for women also, but specifically for men. It teaches men to ejaculate fast, and it teaches them to go into their mind instead of their body with making love and with sex. So it becomes movies in the mind rather than the enjoyment of the body. And it teaches you to, porn is all about, the money shot, the cum shot.
Yeah.
So it's so tough, man. If you do that and you watch porn a lot, you train as a sprinter. Now going to Olympic Games as a sprinter, but then you train with porn and become a sprinter, and then when you interact with a woman, with a real life woman, not a screen woman, and a flesh and life woman, then you must run a marathon, but now you trained for sprints, so then you sprint, and most guys, the average is 5 minutes of lovemaking, and then, that seems to be the consensus around the world. It's like, so so then, and that's not great, because a woman's body is so different. It takes her quite a longer time to warm up. We
Yeah.
have erection in 30 minutes, but women is 15-20 minutes for them to warm up. And you come within 5 minutes, man, she ain't going to be happy, and she's not going to be, really drop into a pleasure.
No, not at all. And honestly, man, I could tell you that straight up. Like, oh man, like for my wife, it's like, okay, cool. I mean, a minimum like half an hour, after everybody's asleep and everything. And it's not something that's ever it's a process, but I enjoy it, right? And obviously, I think we as men have to learn to enjoy that process. But I think too many guys are getting accustomed to that, just like you said, the sprint, just nonstop sprinting, where it's not beneficial for anybody. Not for the dude, not for the girl involved. Nobody really likes that.
Exactly.
But one of the things
No,
that,
exactly.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. Porn is like, and it's not realistic, and it's not a way to connect. You never see people in porn really making eye contact in a deep, very seldom, and actually have a connection with each other. It's all mechanical. So it
Yeah,
teaches young men really the wrong thing, man. If you really want to connect with a woman or open a woman's heart, if you look into her eyes when you make love to her, and that takes her to other places, man. But you
yeah.
don't see that before.
No, no. I mean, the thing is, like you said, it's mechanical. It's just kind of like, okay, we're going for that money shot, and we're just gonna do this, that, and the other. It's like watching two animals go at it or something. It's
Yeah,
like, after being married for as long as I have, I'm like, well, that's definitely not what usually goes down. That's not the way things happen. But at the
yeah,
same time, it's still something that's prevalent in the society, and that's kind of why I talk about it. And I mean, for myself, like my son asked me about it, and I'm just like, no, man, you know what? Listen, that stuff's absolute trash. Don't watch it; you'll get addicted to it. It's everywhere, but it's just trash. Like the way I kind of see it, I'm like that's not the way it is in the real world. And some people are just kind of addicted to it, and I get it. It's nice to look at. And obviously, the people involved are very pretty, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm like, it's just gonna leave you emptier, it's gonna take more from you than it's gonna give, right? And that's the one thing where I'm like, there's no connection, there's nothing, and that's why I'm just not a big fan of it.
sure, sure. No, connection is so important, not just in sex, but in a relationship. If you connect with your woman deeply, then it just takes the relationship to another level outside the bedroom also. There's so much more gentleness, there's so much less irritation, there's so much forgiveness of each other. Now, sexuality plays a big part in a relationship. And if you can do it in a deep connected way, it adds so much to your relationship. And a lot of other things can go wrong. But if you
Yeah,
have deep connection, love making it, wow, it can actually smooth a lot of things over.
yeah. And we were talking about semen retention before. When did you discover this concept, and how did you begin applying it?
Yeah, that's an interesting story, man. This is about 20 years ago, 18 years ago, so the early 40s. I was in a 4-year relationship, and we made love a lot. And it was after being single for a few years, and it just started happening to me. I just started happening, making love for longer, and I started to be able to hold my ejaculation. And my partner was she was about 16 years younger than me, and she had just loads and loads of orgasms, and then I started also having these orgasms. And but 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people to talk to about this, CJ, and especially in business days. In business, you can imagine now in a business talking to about ejaculation to your colleagues. The ex, there's
Frowned
no one.
upon.
Yeah, there was no one to talk to. So I just thought, kind of, this is just normal. Men make love like that, and so it was only really 10 years ago after I left, and I went around the world, and I resigned, and I went, and then I came across Tantra and sacred sexuality. It was 2014 for a year in South America, and then
Mhm.
in January, February, I went to a Tantra festival in Hawaii, the Puna Coast, big island in Hawaii. And yeah, then I spoke to people, and I spoke to these other people and other guys there, and then they said, no, we know about it. That's what we do. And then this is a practice from 2,000-3,000 years ago, from the Taoists in China and the Tantrics in ancient India. And I went, fuck, man, this makes a lot of sense, And then I realized this is actually old practice. So for me, somehow it was just in my being and my knowledge, my body. Crazy reason, I don't know why, but it was just existed and it started happening. And then so I was then only later came across this in the Tantra circle that I went, oh wow. And then a penny dropped, Then I realized, wow, man, this is a beautiful practice, and that very few people know about it. And that led to a passion to just make people aware of it. So I'm super passionate just to share this with other men and women, because as few women know about this as men. And yeah, and I'm also not on a mission to persuade anyone to do it. I just want people to be aware of it, because then they can decide.
Yeah, no, and ultimately, that's all you can do, right? You can talk about the positivity it's brought to your life, but whether people want to do it or not, that's up to them. And that's something that I totally agree with you, right? You always have to respect that. It's like, hey, you know what, this is really helpful. I really enjoy it, but take what you want.
Exactly. The thing is that's always scares me is, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I worried about. If I don't know about, don't know about something, know about some nuclear spinning, I know about, don't know about it. That's okay. But it's the things that I don't know about. That always scares me, and that's, I think, often what happens here with people. It's just to be, just to bring it into their awareness, and empowered to make a choice.
100%, because and that's to your point. It's like when people don't know, they think and they have a very limited perspective on how things are. And I think it's kind of dangerous as well, because that's, that kind of ignorance can breed into other things, right? And it can bleed over into other aspects of our lives or their lives. And that's where the more you start to learn, the more you're open to different things, the more you can take it, apply it to your life, and realize, like, oh, wow, this is cool. This is applicable. I can use it. It's like another tool. And that's when, usually that energy lights up in people. And that's where it's cool to see. And the thing is, I firmly believe this in myself, where it's like, hey, if you learn something, you got to share that. What are you going to do? Die with all this knowledge? Like that's my philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. That's the world we're moving in, I believe. Collaboration and brotherhood, and brothers helping each other. This whole old model of competition and keeping secrets and mystery schools, and I don't know, maybe a few thousand, 100 years ago, it was fine. But I think it's about collaboration now, man. It's about real, true brotherhood, and why wouldn't you want to help
Yeah.
another brother, another man? Why don't you want to share your experience and make you aware of it, and totally empowered to decide, everyone what they want to do. But yeah, definitely to share the info and share the love, man.
No, 100%. And that's kind of where, like, that's the whole purpose of this, podcast, is just kind of like, I learned some things along the way. I want to share it. And then it's beautiful because I can have conversations with people like yourself, who are just like, hey, I want to bring something to the table, and we can all just continue learning, sharing, learning, sharing. And then people can talk about their experiences, and they write me back and be like, hey, that one podcast episode, I learned so much. I didn't know semen retention was a thing, or whatever the case may be. Or even today, it's like, learning about transmutation of sexual energy and stuff. And I think that's really what gives this life meaning. Because at the end of the day, it's like I said, you can hoard information, you can hoard money, you can hoard all that stuff. Then what's the point of living? It's like, if we're able to get all of humanity to level up, especially men, right? In a time where I think men are suffering a lot, I think it's spectacular, man. But another thing that, now that I kind of brought that up, was the multi-orgasmic side of things. How did you discover that, and how do you teach that?
I suggest you brought to most a bit of that there, but how do I teach? Yeah, so if I understand the correction right, how do I teach it, or how do I share it?
Oh yeah, like multi-orgasms, yeah.
Yeah, what I find is really good, specifically for the ejaculation choice practice, is to go on a journey, and there are a few guys in the world doing it. There are two guys in the States that are really good doing it. It's me doing it. Not many, two, three, four guys that are doing it, and sharing, going people on a journey. And I think that works well, man. So I take groups of like guided groups, or I can do it one-on-one with a guy. They do the 21-day journey, and then I say like a Zoom call once a week, or it's like 20, 30, 40 guys on a call, and we meet once a week on a Zoom call, and we're all in this 21-day journey together. And that makes it super powerful, because now you're being witnessed and you're held accountable, and you with a group of other guys, So that's a massive benefit. I think it starts with maybe reading up about it. There's so much on the internet and on YouTube about it. Some good books about, so you can read all of that. That's good. But if you really want to shift it, I really do believe you have to go on some kind of journey with someone. Otherwise, it's just information. You learn the stuff and you read it, but you actually have to go the journey itself. The journey itself of, let's say, for a period, it's 10 days or 21 days or 3 months, or whatever, but not to ejaculate, to stop porn, do some other stuff. We do basic stuff, man. Like in the morning, breathing exercise, and not looking at the phone for the first hour. You go straight into a bit of a breathing, you're owning yourself, a bit of exercise, and you don't look for the phone for for an hour. And few of the guys in the course, obviously had great, transformations on the porn addiction and the ejaculation addiction thing. But few of them also said, fuck, man, that was profound. It changed my life, that I just for the first hour was with myself and not on my phone connecting to the rest of the world, So there are quite a few things to this thing. But yeah, so I think in essence, it's a journey, Conrad.
There we go. You're back. I'm gonna have to edit that part out.
No problem.
I don't know what
No
happened there.
problem.
Never had that drop before. Jeez.
That's great. It was breaking up a bit on your side. I don't know. I hope I wasn't breaking up on your side. A little bit of a break.
Yeah, no, it was clear the whole time. Like, yeah, it's real good, but interesting.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Because I often couldn't hear you. You were breaking up, but I could get the gist, but I was worried that I was clear.
Okay.
Okay. No, but then your side probably pick it up okay.
I'm gonna have to, well, we'll just edit this part out. But anyways, so tell me more about Jump, your actual book where you decided to write this stuff and really kind of put this all together.
Yes. Yeah, Jump was really interesting. I didn't plan to write a book, and I actually still think I didn't write a book. It just dropped. The consciousness dropped through me, and I was just a vessel for that happening. The way it started, CJ, is that I was around the world. 2014 left South Africa, and for the first year in 2014 in South America, and then all over, for 5 years. And then as I was traveling the world, I was blogging, or I was basically blogging on my Facebook page about the journey. And then, the journey became it wasn't much more than sightseeing. It was like going to 6-day residential workshops where I dropped into my masculine and feminine energies and integrating it. And then I would share that on Facebook, and people just went, wow, man, what are you writing about? And it caught some interest, and as I was doing it, I found I was actually really enjoying the writing. In the business days, I didn't really do the writing. The other guys did the reports. I just edited it. So I was super surprised for myself that I really enjoyed the writing, and people loved, reading it. So to the latter part of that journey, it just started becoming, oh wow, maybe this is a book. And then when I'm back in South Africa, probably the last 2 years of the journey, I then started putting together in a book, and then it was published in 2019. So it was in all the bookstores in South Africa. It was published by one of the top publishers of memoirs there. So it's a memoir. Yeah, it's a memoir of the last 10 years or so of my whole life, but mainly the last 10 years and the learnings. And there's some interesting things in there, man, and some pointers of where the world is going.
Yeah. What were some of the chapters that stuck out to you?
Wow, that's a really good question. So maybe you can answer. So for my publisher, maybe let's put it this way: the chapter that she loved the most was 3/4 in the book, and it was a iboga plant medicine journey. I did a lot of plant medicine journeys also, the ayahuasca, San Pedro, psilocybin, and iboga. And that chapter, she said, was the best written. So I really was an amazing journey. So according to her, that's the chapter she loved, or was the best written. For me, it was probably Israel, when I was in Israel for 2-3 months. And I was part of the sacred sexuality community there, and did workshops just outside Jerusalem, led by an old ex-rabbi on sacred sexuality. How the hell do you like that?
A rabbi, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a pretty way out there chapter.
Yeah.
And then the first 3 chapters are pretty wild. The first 3 chapters is the day in Cape Town, the days in Cape Town when I had this inner calling to change my life. But it didn't make sense. So I tried to drown it out with a lot of sex, drugs, and jacuzzis. So it's pretty wild, the first chapters.
Yeah.
It's a lot of crazy stuff in there. And then after that, the whole journey developed to become very spiritual, very deep. But it's very, I believe it's very authentic, because it also tells about the crazy days, and maybe unconscious sex days in the beginning, and then it develops into the rest of the journey.
That's super interesting. Yeah, because I figured you were just kind of enlightened from the get-go, that there was no I guess initial kind of rough start, but it seems like so you probably started almost with like the coping mechanism of, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna go have fun and hang out in jacuzzis and party it up all a bunch, I guess, right?
Yes, the first 3 years, I mean, like 30 pages or so of it, but yeah, it was very much, when I was in my middle 40s and achieved everything I wanted to, making good money, the real good space there. So it didn't make sense. I would just walk into the office, and it was, it was quite a modern place. We would go to dress very, very chill with jeans and stuff, but an open plan floor and so on. So it was a cool business. And I really enjoyed what I was doing in business there. So I really enjoyed it. We created beautiful brands, and it was very heart centered, very consumer focused businesses. But CJ, I just around about 2009, 2010, would walk into the office, and I would just sense the strange feeling. I shouldn't be here. I felt very uncomfortable. I felt I shouldn't be here anymore. And that was so confusing that, there was no one to talk to. So I just tried to distract myself over weekends. So the weekends was quite big parties, and then I would go work Monday to Friday, and then party like crazy the weekend, not much sleep.
Yeah.
And just me and a few women at my house, and no sleep, and a lot of sex and drugs, and jacuzzi. I had a beautiful big the deck overlooking the sea.
Yeah. A lot of good times, but then a lot of emptiness, I guess, too, right? So I guess sometimes you need that in order to spur you in the right direction. So that it's very, very interesting that a lot of people usually have that rough start. But the other thing I was going to ask you, you mentioned that plant medicine in your publisher's favorite chapter. What was it called?
Sorry, CJ, just missed you there.
Oh
The
no,
plant
yeah,
medicine.
with the plant medicine in your publisher's favorite chapter. What was that called? You said it was called like Albagon or something?
It's iboga, yeah. It's iboga, Iboga. 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 It's from African. It's the African root plant. It's from Northwest Africa, and and I'm from Africa. I'm an African. I'm a
Yeah.
white African, but I'm an African. My ancestors have been there for 300-400 years. I'm very much a part of the white tribe of Africa, and but I never came across it in South Africa. I came across it in Europe, and I did my iboga journey, believe it or not, in the Swiss Alps.
Huh.
Like in a little village in the Swiss Alps, out of season. It was like, that's how it came to me. So it was super interesting that I did it there, not in Africa. But yeah, it's it's a they call it the wood, like wood, and it's from Africa, and I would say it's the most senior of the plant medicines. It's quite an intense journey. It's a hectic journey. I mean, all the plant medicines are obviously beautiful teachers, um, but this one is really, you really have to have done a few others, or have to have a lot of experience about observing, to do this. It was very intense. It showed me so many things. Yeah, it's a powerful journey.
Yeah, what was it like though? Was it would you say it's like something like psilocybin or something, or just more intense, like hallucinogenic or
It's a very good question. It's quite different to ayahuasca, where you have the visuals,
hmm
um, or psilocybin, magic mushrooms, where you have the visuals. This is more. This is more less visuals, and it's more from. And obviously, for every journey would be different. For every person would be different, at different times. But for me, my journey was very much about seeing the insanity of our minds, and the busyness of our minds, and the clutter in our minds, not just myself, but also collectively. This voice talking the whole time, now, not getting into silence. So it's very much, it was like basically 20, 30 hours lying on a mattress. And the guy I did it with didn't believe in music. He believed that is the easy way out. That of music was just dead silence. So for 30 hours, you just lie on the mattress, and now and then you would purge a little bit, you'd throw up a little bit, but generally speaking, you would just have all these things coming constantly at you in your mind. So it's pretty intense. And so it was for me a clear realization. It's just a picture about, wow, man, this is what's happening to me often on a normal day, walking down the street. Oh, yes, there's that. Oh, yeah, that happened last night. What does that mean? Oh, yesterday this happened. But, this whole clutter that's going on. And
yeah.
when I was lying there and I experienced it to that even more concentrated effect, like 100,000 times more, it was actually beautiful after that, because it brought me to a deep silence. So you went through that crazy clutter, and then the latter part, you drop into silence. And then for the next 30 days, the idea is to switch off all remotes, being let's say your phone is a remote, or the TV screen, or even writing and reading. God just said, switch off all remotes, just be with yourself and be with silence. Go around the middle of the day, but observe life and be in silence. And that was beautiful. It really brought a very grounded sense of quietness into my being, which was very special.
Very interesting because I find for myself, the more I look into it, the more I think they're here for a reason as far as different plant medicines. Like I think the taboo of before is just dying away because it doesn't make sense. It's very interesting because I had never heard of iboga before, so
Uh,
very, very interesting.
Yes, yes. A lot of people don't know about it. I think it's, yeah, because, yeah, I think you come across it, as they say, the medicine calls you, and I think ayahuasca and those are in a way easier to get into than iboga. You really, really, I think, must be ready for to be called, into that. Um, but it's amazing. It's got this massive case studies and research have done where they even use it nowadays for addictions, heroin addiction, and
Hmm.
curing people with one journey of heroin addiction. I'm not a specialist on plant medicine, but iboga is pretty powerful.
Interesting. Super interesting. But on that note, are there any closing words you want to leave us with, Leonard? Because I had a great time learning from you, man.
No, CJ, thank you. It's just great, man. Well done for what you're doing in the world. And I've listened to one or two of your podcasts, and yeah, I can just feel the energy that you bring. So thank you for that, and that's beautiful. And yeah, from my perspective, yeah, I just want to reach out to men, to drop into the expression as men. This I think there's the modern man out there nowadays. There's so much pressure. There's also a lot of confusion. This whole thing, about patriarchy that's in the background there, and then the younger men coming to the world, and they have nothing to do with it, but sometimes they arrive on this planet not feeling that welcome. So I'm really very passionate to bring pride and honor to masculinity again, and it's a beautiful
Yeah.
word, but it's not a bad word, for men to drop into that masculine parts of them, but in a heart space, do the deep inner journey, drop into their hearts, and to be proudly masculine.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, I think that should be the topic for our next conversation. Definitely. I feel like we touched on it here, but I definitely want to have you on, and definitely, Leonard. Definitely. If you're in for it, man, we should definitely do it again.
Oh, that's awesome, brother. I look forward.
All right. That being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Leonard.
Awesome, man.